Hi, VC. It's Mike. I'm going to show a couple of current listens in this video. I'm going to start off with some world music. This is from the Sudan. I bought this maybe a year ago. It's very, very intoxicating music. It's fantastic world music. The Sudan, it's a country that borders Egypt, Libya, and Ethiopia. Uh, Two rivers flow through that country and meet in the capital city of Khartoum. The White Nile and the Blue Nile, which I never knew existed. I just knew the Nile River. Uh, but they're two, they are confluence of the rivers meet basically in the capital city of Khartoum. This music was recorded from 1970 all the way to 1997. Politics created this music and also destroyed it. That story is well documented in the liner notes. I'm not going to get into that part of it, but the liner notes are fantastic. Cover every aspect of the music you could ever think about. The history of it. We actually do some interviews with some of the survivors and family members of some of the musicians. I guess the Sudan music scene was so vibrant that people as far away as Nigeria and Cameroon really sought out this music. It's basically new to me. That's a region of Africa that I really never heard any music from. Of course, this stuff was very hard to compile. It was not like 99% of it, I believe, was taken from cassettes. So these guys who did the research and compilation deserve a lot of credit for hunting this stuff down. They actually had traveled through many African countries besides the Sudan to actually find this stuff. If anybody is familiar with like Bollywood type music, some of this stuff is reminiscent of a Bollywood soundtrack style music, which I'm a big fan of. The title is Two Niles to Sing a Melody. The Violins and Synths of the Sudan. There's not too much. I was expecting a lot of like synthesizer sounds from the 70s, but there's hardly any synth sounds on here. If they are, they're in the background. But there's on the second CD especially, there's tons of violins, which I love. Violin sections, more than just one violin. The first CD, I love it because it contains a lot of accordion music. Sometimes more than one accordion in the band. I don't know why they should have said accordion and synth and violin music rather than violin and synth music, but whatever. But yeah, that's the rhythms, of course, the drums are intoxicating rhythms, perfect. Typical Arabic rhythm. The vocals have that melismatic quality that everybody knows about who likes Arabic and Middle Eastern music. Some of these people, I guess, a guy named Muhammad Wardi was, really a well-known musician throughout Africa. Maybe even people in London and Paris. I think he toured a lot, and so they, European people might know that name at least. But the other people, I don't think were as well known throughout the world. The first song on the very first CD, it translates to "The One I Love" by Imad Yusuf, which features some really great funky rhythms, almost like something James Brown would have liked. And the other great song that I love on that CD is the fourth song the third song, sorry, by a guy named Kamal Tabas. That translates to "Forget Those That Divide Us." That's a really perfect example of what's on here. The combination of voice and musical background is exquisite. Uh, the guy I mentioned, Muhammad Wardi, on the second CD, he has two longer tracks. One's 9 minutes long and one's 11 minutes long. Those are more of a big orchestra. Um, those are fantastic pieces. It's reminiscent of Kulthum, who's the the mother of all Arabic singers, from Egypt. She's one of the greatest singers in the world. So I'm going to say he's probably a male counterpart to her. Uh, the second track, which translates to The Messenger, has beautiful backing orchestral sounds, massed violin sounds. It also has a tenor saxophone in there, and what sounds to me like a Hawaiian guitar, believe it or not, which is, doesn't surprise me, just like the Bollywood stuff. They mix in all sorts of elements that, kind of unexpected. But, throughout here, the rhythms are really what, like I said, I keep using the word intoxicating because that's exactly what they are. It's beautiful, beautiful sounding. But the mastering on the cassettes was done, exquisite. Sound is really good. I'm going to show you some great photographs in this booklet. Here's a great picture right here. This music has, when you hear it, you think of an urban setting, not so much, in nature, but more of you're in the city. Uh, and I'm struck by the use of color in their culture. They never have primary colors. See these off-base colors that are beautiful. So they have a different attitude towards color, and that's reflected in the sound of the music. Which if there's some kind of connection there between their love of color and the difference in the music, as compared to the Western world. Here's another great example, a great photograph. Um, if you notice the beautiful clothing and the color in the clothing, uh, it's really astounding. So again, the use of color to me indicates the difference in the cultural values that they have. They really don't stick to basic stuff. It's always a variation on what's more or less common throughout the world, which I really, that fascinates me in itself. Um, there's some great pictures of some of the musicians in here. Here's one. You can tell that was taken in the 1970s. This guy right here is the singer Kamal Tarbas, who I love. He's got an excellent voice, really nice voice. Uh, there's actually two female vocalists on here, which is pretty rare for Arabic Islamic music. So that's interesting in its own right too. I think they interview one of the women in here, maybe the other one too. The liner notes are so extensive, I actually haven't read them all. But they like I said, the liner notes should have won some kind of Grammy award. That's how good the liner notes are on this. It's on a label called Ostinato Records. They have some previous releases that I like to check out also. They're based in New York City, but the people who really compile this deserve a lot of credit. Um, it was very tough to even find this stuff. So I really appreciate all the hard work that went into making this beautiful package too. The second album I'm going to show uh, is it includes one of my favorite guitar players, Richard Bishop. It's a band called Rangda. This album title is called Formerly Extinct, which is a great title. The other members of the band, another guitar player, Ben Chasney. People might know him from he was in two other bands. One called Comets on Fire. The other band was Six Organs of Admittance. And the drummer is Chris Corsano, which a lot of people at the VC know him for sure. Uh, Rangda is a Balinese female goddess of basically of destruction. Uh, so Richard Bishop is a world traveler. He's also a bookseller on occult type stuff, but he's very knowledgeable and did a lot of traveling in Indonesia, African countries. So he's well versed in any type of music, throughout the world. And an important aspect of this particular album is surf music, which to me is interesting because Richard Bishop himself was born in Michigan. Every time you read an interview or story about Richard Bishop, he mentions the fact that his father was Lebanese, and his father had a collection of Lebanese pop music on cassettes. So Richard and his brother Alan, who were also members of the Sun City Girls, that was the first band they were in with drummer Charles Gaucher. I don't want to talk about them too much now, but they're one of my favorite bands, Sun City Girls. So anyway, they would beg their grandfathers to play that Lebanese music for them. So that was a big, big influence on Richard Bishop's guitar style, playing. Another interesting fact about surf music is Dick Dale, one of the forerunners of surf music. He's Lebanese. I think his real name was Richard Mansour, and he was born in Boston, Massachusetts. I always thought he was born in California, but no, he came from Boston. I think his father got a job out there, so they moved there probably at an early age. But surf music is based on Middle Eastern music. Dick Dale is a prime example of that, and Richard Bishop, has elements of that in his style. Richard Bishop's also a big fan of Jimmy Page, George Harrison, and Chet Atkins. He never talks about Hendrix as an influence. I find that a little bit interesting. But of course, all the fantastic Turkish and Egyptian guitar players from the 70s, he's very well versed in all those guys' playing skills also. So this is a trio, 2 guitars and a drummer, which is, in itself kind of an unusual combination. I'm a little bit underwhelmed by Chris Corsano's drumming on this. I expected a little bit more, experimental or wildness to him, but he's kind of conservative on most of the songs. There's a song called Plug Nickel, which he kind of excels on that one particular song. It's made up of shorter songs, maybe like 4-minute songs, 3-minute songs. The centerpiece is a song called Silver Nile. I just talked about 2 other Nile rivers. Well, this is called Silver Nile. It's a 11-minute long piece that's really great. To me, it's an epic sounding song, almost like a Stairway to Heaven. No lyrics, but it's got that epic feel, like a Stairway to Heaven song. That's in the alternate universe, the Silver Nile song would be played as much as Stairway to Heaven is. I was fortunate enough to meet Richard Bishop once. He played a solo concert in Providence. Lately, the solo concerts feature acoustic guitar playing. So the night I saw him, it was just him playing acoustic guitar. I rank him as high as John Fahey, Robbie Basho, all those guys. He's an amazing acoustic guitar player as well as electric, but I really like his acoustic solo performances. That night after the show, I sat down with him, had a few shots of whiskey, and we had a nice conversation. And I mentioned an album of his that I wanted, but it was only on vinyl, called Fingering the Devil. He was nice enough to give me a CD-R version of it with a different, like a handmade cover, which is great. Beautiful image on there, and with like a homemade insert with the song titles on it. But that's a really good solo album by him called Fingering the Devil. If you ever see that, grab that also. This album cover, I love. It was actually a collaboration between two different artists. I'm assuming each one of them painted each one of them painted one of the bears. It's a great album cover. Uh, Great painting. The painting itself is priceless. And the title, Formerly Extinct, is catchy also. My last thing I'm going to show is an amazing album to me in many different ways uh, because it features two fantastic musicians. Well, it doesn't feature, it's involving two fantastic musicians. Gil Evans plays the music of Jimi Hendrix. Uh, this came out in 1974, I believe on RCA originally. Gil Evans was planning on meeting with Jimi Hendrix, but unfortunately Hendrix died 3 days before their scheduled meeting. The meeting between those two guys was actually instigated by Alan Douglas, who was Jimi Hendrix's manager. Miles Davis had been hanging out with Hendrix also, but Alan Douglas really wanted uh, Hendrix to perform at least a live concert and do a follow-up album with featuring his electric lead guitar backed by the Gil Evans Orchestra. Another interesting side note to the creation of this album is Frank Zappa. When Hendrix first came out, Frank Zappa actually contacted Jimi Hendrix management and suggested to them that Hendrix should work with an arranger. So Frank Zappa was actually correct. He predicted this was going to happen. It would have been great to have Gil Evans do a Frank Zappa, uh, uh, a collaboration too. That would have been probably just as good as the Hendrix one. But this album right here really, showcases Hendrix as a composer. Most people know him just, of course, as an awesome guitar player. One of my favorites, of course. But his compositional skills were incredible. There's a great the cast of characters on this album is it's incredible. I'm going to list them actually, most of them anyway. John Abercrombie on guitar, Ryo Kawasaki on guitar, a guy named Keith Loving, who he's a guitar player, but I'm not too hip on what he was about. I think he actually played with Rosanne Roland Kirk and a few other people, maybe some R&B people. I have to look more into his stuff. But the guitar is definitely not the centerpiece of this album. I don't think anybody would attempt to recreate Jimi Hendrix's guitar sound. John Abercrombie was very influenced by Gil Evans in his early days, maybe at Berkeley. But a key factor in this is the presence of Warren Smith. He's on vibraphone, marimba, percussion. The drummer is Bruce Ditmas, who's actually a great drummer. Very few people know him. But Warren Smith had a rehearsal studio, and he would allow Gil Evans to rehearse his piano there. So Warren Smith and Gil Evans were really close, and they worked together a lot before this, and maybe a little bit after this too. The other percussion player on here is Sue Evans. I always assumed that Sue was Gil's either daughter or relative, but that's not the case. Doing a little bit of research on Sue Evans, I found out that she actually was taught by Warren Smith how to play percussion instruments. She was a good friend of his, and this album was actually her first recording session. So, of course, she was very nervous, and the fact that Elvin Jones was present, he didn't play on this, but he was present during the recording sessions, so that made her even more nervous to perform in front of Elvin Jones. But the percussion players are really an integral part of this. That's the beauty of Gil Evans. He spreads out the parts amongst all the musicians, so it's not a typical uh, orchestra because everybody plays, their individual parts, on par with everybody else. The only really typical big band sounding thing is the first track, the song Angel, which features a fantastic alto sax solo by David Sanborn, who's another guy who gets lumped in with that smooth jazz category. But he's not. He's a really good sax player. But that's actually my favorite solo on this entire album, the song Angel. Billy Harper's on here. You would assume, but he doesn't really gets a little bit of a solo space, but not too much. But Billy Harper played a lot with Gil Evans, on mostly live recordings. But yeah, this stuff is really interesting. The song Voodoo Chili actually features the tuba, Howard Johnson's tuba, as the lead instrument. So that's an interesting take on Hendrix. You don't think of Hendrix and the tuba going together, but Gil Evans knew how to pull that off for sure. Another interesting side note to this album, Gil Evans also wanted to record an album with Lester Young. That never happened either. Due to alcoholism, Lester, at the time they wanted to work together. Lester Young, according to Gil Evans in the liner notes, Lester Young really wanted to make the album, but unfortunately he wanted to die even more. That's an unfortunate thing that never happened with Gil. He also wanted to do some work with Louis Armstrong. That fell through due to Louis Armstrong's management not being willing to go ahead with the project. But my favorite track on here is a medley of Castles Made of Sand with Foxy Lady. Foxy Lady, is probably one of the overplayed Hendrix tunes, but the medley on here is really, really nice. And again, Warren Smith and Sue Evans, even on that track, for the entire album, they really have a lot to say. And Gil wrote some nice parts for the percussion players also. And Hannibal Marvin Peterson's on here too, playing trumpet. He actually has two guest vocals, one on Crosstown Traffic, and the second vocal is on a version of Little Wing, which was actually taken from different sessions from 1975 when Gil Evans recorded the album called There Comes a Time. It's a little bit different. There's some of the same musicians on there, but it sounds a little bit different. But, it's a nice bonus track on here. There's also a few alternate takes that are worth hearing. But yeah, any Hendrix fan or Gil Evans fan should definitely check this album out. This was a reissue from a couple years back. I'm not sure if the vinyl issues are easily available, but anybody who's a Hendrix fan definitely should have this in their Hendrix collection for sure. Okay, guys, have a good night. We'll talk to you later. Bye.